Hello friends, it's Kathy from Kathy by Design, and I'd like to welcome you to my 2016 Graphic 45 Final Round Audition. I've already shared my Children's Hour Flip Calendar and Storage Box project with you. Now I'd like to show you how to build the individual tags for the flip frame. Here's what you'll need to make these tags. The 8x8 Children's Hour pad, the 8x8 calendar pad for Children's Hour, and the 6x6 prints and patterns pad from Children's Hour. You will also need cream cardstock, regular ivory staples tags, foam adhesive, jute string, and some goodies from your stash, along with the normal crafting tools like glue, rulers, scissors, punches, that sort of thing. So let's get started. Here's an example of the tags. This is the July tag, and you can see I've added petaloo flowers, little charms and buttons from my stash. I've used burlap string from Really Reasonable Ribbon, crocheted lace, also from Really Reasonable Ribbon, to build the front of this tag. Then as the tags flip in the frame, the back side has a really fun little mini album included for each month. These are all pictures of my grandchildren, and I've taken them from the family calendar that my daughter-in-law builds for us each year at Christmas. So I'm just going to show you how to put these tags together. I think you'll find it's fun and easy. As I stated before, you want to begin with a Staples regular tag. Now, they're slightly too wide to fit the flip frame, but it's an easy fix. You just cut 1/4 of an inch, trim 1/4 of an inch off of each side and the bottom of the tag. Then just use your scissors to round out the edges. Don't worry if it's not absolutely perfect, because by the time you cover this up, no one's going to know. That's the beauty of this project. So here's our tag. I decided to orient it with this pretty scalloped end facing down. What you're going to do is take the 8x8 paper from your pad. You're going to lay your tag over and just trace around. Everybody knows how to trace with a pencil. Super easy. Trim out your tag, ink the edges, and then you'll see that the ivory tag has this lovely grommet that we want to feature. We want to use this, but it's very difficult to glue over the top of this. So what I did was I placed my tag, lined everything up, and then I used a pencil to trace inside the hole. Now I can just take this little 1/2 inch punch, I can line it up with my paper, punch out the hole, and then I want to ink the inside of this with a little vintage photo so it's not so raw. And then I'm just going to take my glue. I like to work with liquid glue. I find it gives me control. And the secret with liquid glue is a little bit goes a long way. Then I'm just going to line this up over my grommet to start with. Kind of push it down around there. It fits like very easily. And then just slide this into place. I like to use a bone folder to burnish it down, like so. Then take your scissors and trim off anything that's not quite perfect. It's easier if you flip it over. Just going to trim up this side a little bit. Good sharp scissors go a long way. They're crafter's best friend. And note that I'm moving the tag and not moving the scissors very much. That's the secret to getting a nice smooth cut. Okay. So, very nice. Okay, so now I'm just going to take my Distress ink and touch up these edges a little bit. And you're just going to sponge it on. This helps define, it creates a border, and it helps the images in the center pop, and it also helps cover up any teeny tiny little imperfections that you might have. So very easy. Okay, set that aside. Now, I'm actually going to flip this, and I'm going to work on the back side of this tag because it's easier to work on a flat surface than a lumpy surface. And I did the same thing for the back side of the tag. This is the reverse of the December page. I traced it out, I trimmed it. That looks pretty good. Cut the hole punch to get around the grommet. Now we're going to add our glue. Don't worry about that hole, by the way. You're never going to see it. And then again, I'm going to start at the top to line this up. Adjust it on the sides if I need to. Flip it. I need to trim just a little bit right here. And that looks pretty perfect to me. Now we're just going to re-ink our edges. And we're going to start building this side of the tag. The first thing we're going to do is cut a 2.5 by 3.5 rectangle from the reverse side of the Tiny Prints and Patterns. And I love these papers because they match perfectly. So again, with our glue, just add a little to the corners. We don't have to overdo it. A little goes a long way, remember? And then we're just going to line this up, and I want this to sit fairly close to the bottom of my tag, and you'll see why in a moment. Just set that in place and kind of burnish it a little bit with your fingers. That looks good. Straighten it out just a little bit here. This is the reason I like to work with liquid glue, because you can adjust if you happen to notice that something's a little cattywampus. There we go. Okay, now from the cut apart pages of the December 8x8, I cut out this little verse, matted it on cream cardstock. Everything is matted on cream cardstock to unify the design. We're going to add a little bit of glue, and we're just going to center this up over the hole at the top of the tag. Just hold that down for a second. That looks great. Oops, a little crooked. It's hard working. It's easier doing this when you're not taping it. I also cut the December title, inked the edges, and for here we're just going to add a little dot of glue on this side and a little dot of glue on this side. Then we're going to position this down toward the bottom of our tag. It's going to overlap a little bit on each side. That's exactly what we want it to do. Just hold that in place. Then I use this small photo of our granddaughter on Christmas. I put a little score tape on the back. With photos, you always want to use score tape. Now, this will slip nicely right down inside so that we can line everything up nice and straight. That looks pretty good. Adjust it just a little bit. Burnish that down, and that's the back side of our tag all done. Very simple on the back. So now let's get back to the front. That's where all the action is. And we have this ready to go. So the first thing we want to do is cut a belly band. And you want to cut it slightly smaller than the width of your tag and about 2.5 inches tall. And we're going to glue this into place. Oops. Again, just a little glue goes a long way. And I want this to sit kind of low on my tag so that I have room to add a border and some lace. So just burnish that down. That's looking real good. And again, this is the pattern from the 6x6, the reverse. Then to create a border piece, I just cut one of the a portion of the border from the cut apart page. I liked how this kind of popped against there. And for this, I like to add the glue to the tag rather than the paper. Center this up, like so. And that looks good. Then we're going to flip it. We're going to trim the excess. We're just going to ink the cut edges, right? That looks really good. Now, here's the fun part. The original Staples tags have rounded corners. So to do that, I've got a corner chomper that has a 1/4 inch edge and a 1/2 inch edge. We're going to use the 1/4 inch edge, and we're going to stick this down in there, and we're going to round out the corners. It just gives it a really pretty look. Anytime you cut or punch, bring in that vintage photo distress ink just to keep everything looking good. So there we are with that. Next, we're going to take a little piece of red line tape, add it to the paper, trim it even, then lift the red part of the tape to expose the sticky. And this is Juliet natural crocheted lace from Really Reasonable Ribbon. I'm just going to line this up with my tag. This adds such a pretty vintage look. Make sure everything's nice and straight. And here's a handy tip for you. Crocheted lace loves to ravel. So you take just a tiny bit of glue and tap it on there. Then just leave it alone. Let it dry for a little bit. And we'll come back in a few and we'll trim that off, and it'll be perfect. It's a really good trick. Okay, so here's our border, our lace, our belly band. Now we're ready to add our focal image. And this is cut from the 8x8, matted on cream cardstock. I've put foam dots on the back. Just peel these papers off. We want to line this up. You can use a ruler if you want. I tend to eyeball most of the time. And I want it to sit just above the grommet, even on either side, and just press it down. So that's that. Now I have this cute little silver clock. It makes me think of the Graphic 45 vintage clock. I put a little foam adhesive on the back. We're going to peel that off. And we're going to add this right over the grommet. Put that down. Isn't that cute? Okay, now I cut this little sentiment strip, matted it on cream cardstock, foam tape on the back, and we're going to center this with our focal image. Oops, I'm going to go a little this way. There's that. This is coming along nicely. Now, I cut out the little calendar, and I usually choose which side I want this to be on. I think I like it here. So I've added a foam dot on the back, and I'm going to take a little bit of glue, add it to that corner, take off the foam backing. I'm going to insert this so that the corner sits down inside, and then the foam dot kind of lifts it at the top. I like that look. It adds a little dimension and it's kind of fun. Then, now I'm going to need my hot glue gun. This is where it gets exciting, people. I've created this little burlap string bow. Glue guns, they're my best friend and my worst enemy at the same time. I bear many battle scars. We just want a little drop of hot glue on there. We're going to set our bow in place. Just hold it for a second for that glue to set. make our loops all pretty. This is made with natural burlap string from Really Reasonable Ribbon. And then I found this cute little Christmas tree button in my stash. I inked the edges with Vintage Photo just to kind of define the shape and help it to pop. And again, we're just going to add a drop of glue. Glue our button on top of our string. This is the same recipe, if you will, that I followed for each of the tags in the album. And when you kind of use the same design for something like this that has so many components, it helps unify it, but it also makes your life really simple. So here's a stamp that I cut out with shaped scissors. I've added foam dot on the back, and you guessed it, I'm going to add a little glue along the bottom. And I'm going to set this right about here. I like it there. You don't want to hide that cute little kid who's peeking out from the staircase. So that's in place. Now, I have some petaloo flowers that I'm going to bring in. And this is where you just kind of have to play, choose your preferences, hot glue, move it around. But I like this pretty burlap poinsettia. I'm going to hold that in place just for that glue to set. And then underneath, I'm going to lift this. I'm going to put a little hot glue underneath. I hope you can see that. And I've twisted together some of the petaloo berries. And I want them to come sort of like this to represent holly berries. And then I have this really beautiful petaloo flower. I like it right there. Hot glue. There we go. So the berries are peeking out. Hold that in place. And then the last component, and we're almost done, and this is a really good trick. I created a multi-loop bow from burlap string. And I'm just gonna, once again, lift this petal. I'm gonna put my glue under the petal. Don't ever use your fingers to do this. You will rue the day. And then I'm gonna use the point of my scissors and just poke that bow right in under that leaf. Kind of adjust it a little bit. Fluff it, get it. You have a few seconds before the glue completely sets that you can kind of tame that bow and make it do what you want it to do. And that, my friends, is how to create a tag. Oh, okay, and there's our tag. The last step we have to do is create the holes so it will hang on our O-rings. And that's a really simple procedure. Just take one of your completed tags, line it up at the top so everything is straight. Take a pencil, trace through those holes like I just did. And then you're going to need a pretty good punch to get through all those layers. This I think is made by Cropper. Oh, We Are Memory Keepers. Okay. And then, I don't know if you can see that, I'm just lining my punch up with the circles that I just traced. Repeat it on this side. Then again, just a tiny bit of Vintage Photo to cover the raw edges on each side. Now your December tag is ready to hang in your flip frame. Okay, so now that our glue is set, the final step is just to go back and trim off the edges of our crocheted lace. Do it from this side. Can you see that? And you can see the glue just stops all that unraveling, but it cuts neat and clean. And always keep a pair of ribbon scissors. That's another really good tip. Keep a pair of scissors that you use only for cutting ribbon, and you'll always be able to get a good clean cut. So there's our tag. It's ready to go in the box with all of its other buddies. Thank you so much for joining me for this video tutorial. Go get your craft on. Okay, so now that our glue is set, the final step is just to go back and trim off the edges of our crocheted lace. Do it from this side. Can you see that? And you can see the glue just stops all that unraveling, but it cuts neat and clean. And always keep a pair of ribbon scissors. That's another really good tip. Keep a pair of scissors that you use only for cutting ribbon, and you'll always be able to get a good clean cut. So there's our tag. It's ready to go in the box with all of its other buddies. Thank you so much for joining me for this video tutorial. Go get your craft on.